Iowa fans, since you have absolutely nothing else to think about, watch, do, talk about, in the meantime, of course, we will talk about football because, of course, that's what's on your mind all the time as Iowa Hawkeye faithful. Nothing else exists, right? Okay, here we are. Hawkeyes live right here at the Voice of College Football every Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 where it counts. And, of course, the guy that makes it all go for us, Corey Bradda from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, I guess you've been a little bit busy these days, but at least the men have not gotten in the way of furthering your scheduling.
Yeah. Men are done. The Iowa men are done. And about an hour ago, I got confirmation. There were some reports. I know Jeff Goodman reported it, but Iowa senior guard Tony Perkins, who has 1 year of eligibility remaining, we just had his uncle Frank on for post-game coverage on Sunday. He has entered the portal. So 14 point per game scorer. I know some people want to act like, because a guy struggles in a couple of games that he's, isn't worth a darn. But that's a big loss. And I don't know how Iowa basketball recovers from it other than trying to go to the portal. But I guess we can talk about that. I can talk about that on my show. As it relates to the Iowa women, they're going on to the Sweet 16. We know that. Battled through a very physical and defensive-minded West Virginia Mountaineers squad last night. So it'll be Iowa, Colorado, really good matchup. I think another team that provides some matchup problems. So Iowa will have to play well to win. And so we'll go. We'll see where we are here in a week from now. But still got basketball ahead of us. And Kirk Ferentz met with the media today. I was not there in person. I know we've got Tom Kakert going to be jumping on with us, providing some insight here in a little bit. I did get a chance to listen to at least part of that press conference, and I'll go back later and catch the rest of it. But nothing really surprising that I heard. I know some people are making a big deal out of Deacon Hill being listed right behind Cade McNamara. McNamara is not even really, he can't even move. Kirk basically confirmed that. He's basically able to throw standing still, and that's about it. He won't be full speed until the summer. And hopefully that means I think the month was tossed out there of June. So hopefully that gives him plenty of time to get his feet back under him before the start of fall camp in August. But that doesn't discourage. Do I think that Marco is going to get his fair shake in the spring? I have no idea. I think Marco Lainez deserves to get a lot more snaps with the ones than he probably did during bowl prep. I don't know exactly what he got during prep, but from what we saw in the field during the Citrus Bowl, he obviously didn't get much. And it took a lot for him to even see the field. So hopefully Tim Lester, is a recipe for change. And I know Kirk made the comment, I tweeted it out, and it was kind of it's kind of one of those quotes that I thought was a really good quote, but I don't know how much substance there really is behind it. Hopefully there is a lot of substance, but he made the comment today about Tim Lester. He said, and I quote, "We're taking his playbook and running with it." To me, that's noteworthy that he said that. Not that Kirk has a playbook. Like, we have to realize that he's not an offensive play caller, but there is that stigma, that narrative with a lot of fans that believe that this has always been Kirk's offense. Philosophy-wise, yeah, sure, but based on what he said today, they're acclimating. They're going through the process of acclimating themselves with a playbook from a bit of a foreigner in Tim Lester. So hopefully that pays dividends. That's what we all want.
I could be sarcastic and say we're going to run with Tim Lester's playbook once we rip out all the gadget plays and the creativity and all the pass plays out of the offense. No, we're going to run with Tim Lester's offense. I like that. Kirk made a comment early in the news conference, and I had only gotten started on it. Thanks to you. You had alerted me to the fact that there was one. I should be checking my inbox because I do get those notifications from the University of Iowa. But, he just pointed out early in the news conference that there's a much different learning curve and just a much different situation for the defensive players than the offensive players, that this is obviously what he considers to be a relaxed time. There's no pressure to perform to a certain extent, because they want just to see that individual development working on your techniques. But for the defense, they're working through a defense that's been in place for 25 years. For the offense, it's a whole new deal, new terminology, probably new plays, new concepts, all of that.
Hopefully.
And that should get people excited. That should get the players on the offensive side excited.
Yeah, hopefully. As I say, hopefully, fingers crossed, new plays, new concepts offensively. And they are a lot younger. I mean, we know that on offense. They're just a lot younger. You lose some experienced guys like Eric All. He obviously he might have been their best offensive player before he got hurt last year. And, they lose Nico Ragaini, who I know wasn't real productive as a receiver, but he was a veteran. They just have a lot of unprovens. You trust what they're going to do at tight end. I know we went through some position previews, including tight end position, but with a new OC, with a new playbook, potentially, theoretically, once again, there's a lot of unknowns with the offense. And we can talk as much as we want about, well, the defense just happens to be older and more experienced. There's a reason why they're able to retain players to a higher volume and extent on offense than they are on defense, right? Like the receivers transfer out because they're either not being used or they're not playing enough or, whatever. In general, like besides tight end, there aren't a ton of offensive players that are highlighted in this offense. So yeah, they're pretty stacked across the defensive side. I know Kirk kind of led with that today and brought up the transfer portal, Nick Jackson. I thought Kirk, I know people sometimes view me as a Kirk hater. I went straight to Twitter this afternoon during Kirk's presser because I was not traveling during the first 15 minutes or so of the presser. He made the comment that, I shouldn't say, I don't have a direct quote from him as it relates to Proctor, but he was asked about Kayden Proctor. And I thought the way he answered the question was very diplomatic, and I thought he handled it very well. I don't know what happened there. I know there's reports, there's talk that Kayden Proctor went on spring break with some old friends from Alabama, and they kind of coerced him into coming back. And if that's the case, then you'd almost have to say, okay, do you really put any blame on Iowa? Probably not. If it's all money related, do you put any blame on Iowa? Not really, probably not. But I also always hesitant because you never know the full story on these things. But I think the bottom line is, Mark, and we were on the air last week at this time, and we were kind of speculating because it was a rumor, but it hadn't been confirmed. I think Kirk has handled this, from what I know on the outside looking in. Kirk has handled the situation very well. Because he's got reason to be pissed. There's reason to be frustrated. There's reason to be angry at the system. There's reason to be angry. Kayden Proctor is not a kid. He's an adult. All right. I hate when people call these college students kids. It's fair to say they're 18 to 22-year-olds, but they're not kids. And he's not a kid. And he's made 4 different decisions over the course of a year and a half. So that's a fair thing to be frustrated with. But I thought Kirk, if he was frustrated, I'm sure he was frustrated when it happened. But he basically said what I think we were all thinking. If a guy doesn't want to be here, let him go. And I ain't giving 2 thoughts to, and I'm not part of that staff. I'm not part of that roster. But I can tell you from a media perspective, I have no interest in bringing up Kayden Proctor on any level for any reason, unless it's something specific. I'm tired of talking about him. I said that on my show here last week. I'm just tired of talking about it. I totally get the concept of a kid making a decision. He gets homesick, he comes home. But this flip-flop crap is just stupid. And that's my opinion. I'm going to always state my opinion. I know people in the Kayden Proctor circle that I have respect for, but from the outside looking in, it's a pretty immature looking decision. But the rules allow you to make those decisions right now. And like Kirk was asked, Dennis Dodd at CBS Sports was there at the press conference today, was asked specifically about pay for play and NIL and all these things are influencing the scene of college football. And Kirk, again, he's been consistent with his viewpoint. It's a flawed system with huge holes. He doesn't have the answer to it. I don't know who does have the answer to it. And until someone finds an answer, we're going to continue to see scenarios like this. Iowa's scenario happened to make big headlines because it's one of the more egregious ones we've seen.
So just to capitalize and extend on something that you're talking about right there, because I'm fully on board with this, but I don't know that everyone comprehends it to this extent. When you say you're sick of it, sick of talking about it, let's understand that the recruiting process, especially with a 5-star that has that kind of notoriety, that must have started sometime in his sophomore season, that he became a big deal and the talk of the future of Iowa football. Just one of those guys that is put on a pedestal, and he has great talent and great ability. But there's a 2.5 year window there basically just to get to National Signing Day. And I don't have to take everyone through what happened after that, because we all know the storyline over the last year and a half. And so for the average fan, there is a drain on, you're pulling your heartstrings once and thinking you're at the finish line, and this is not Florida, this is not Texas, where there's a lineup of 5 stars. This is a big deal for this player to have chosen Iowa and to be a 5-star within this state. And so he does it to the fan base one time, and then of course he does it again. But think about Kirk and the staff. It's not just their feelings and they're kind of hurt, offended, like the fan base is. The resources given to pursuing and communicating with and all the things involved, and then bringing him back. And basically, Kayden Proctor has not just failed to contribute anything to Iowa football because he didn't even step on the field for one practice. He is taken away from Iowa football, and a lot of attention and resources and money could have been directed in other ways.
And regardless of his reason, even if it's not for money, here's my opinion, and you can agree with it if you want, Mark. You don't have to, but I think he has contributed to a bad reputation on student athletes. And it's one example, but like that story was a national headline, has been a national headline over the last week, and not in a positive light. There are national people who are literally drawing attention to Kayden Proctor's situation and saying, this is what's wrong with the current structure. So from that perspective, I did lose a lot of respect for him. I don't know the kid personally, but as a decision maker, I don't care. And guess what? Here's maybe some homerism coming out. He's an offensive tackle. Like Tyler Linderbaum was great at Iowa. All right. Was a first-round draft pick, has been terrific for the Baltimore Ravens. He was one player, and that line sucked. All right? It sucked in 2021, Mark. So unless they build around Kayden, they're still going to have to build around Kayden Proctor. You want to come in and all of a sudden they're running the ball up and down the field on Penn State. They got to figure out a way to develop a lot of guys. There's a lot of experience returning on that offensive line. So you can't guarantee it. Obviously, he would have helped, but again, wash your hands of it. They got Nick Brooks coming to town here very soon. He's another high 4-star, 360-pound tackle out of Cedar Rapids. It was at one time committed to Iowa, decommitted because he wanted to take other visits. He's still scheduled to visit Iowa, scheduled to visit Alabama. Can you imagine what that dynamic's going to be like with Proctor and Nick Brooks down there? I mean, good Lord. But anyways, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with all that. But Iowa is back on the field. They've been on the field now for almost a week. Of course, they only get a couple practices. I think they got 3 practices last week. I think they went Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, something like that. And we'll have a few more weeks here. But anyways, what else did you ask? Did I miss something else?
You did not miss anything, but I was going to make a statement that when you bring up pay for play, and I mean actual pay for play, the income is tied to the play. And it is to a certain extent. Let's not kid ourselves at this point, but I mean officially, I think that makes just about everyone who's listening to us right now cringe. However, this may turn out to be a positive from this aspect. You're a high school football player. You make your commitment. You make your decision. You sign on the dotted line, and you are signing at the minimum, 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract. You're a professional of sorts. Now we're paying you. There's your contract.
Well, what is a national letter of intent? What is
but
that?
It obviously can be broken. It's tied to admission at the school.
I know. I know. But that's what I'm saying.
And I truly believe and want, and this may seem a bit ridiculous in this day and age, but that commitment, if it goes in that direction that I just pointed out, to also be tied to school. This is not a professional league. It is of sorts, sure, and these players do generate this kind of income, but that contract also includes you're playing for a university team. Therefore, you have to show progress toward a degree by way of taking tests, doing homework, passing classes.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought it was ridiculous. I mean, we talk about pay for play, scholarship. What's the difference between pay for play, the pay for play concept, and a scholarship? What's the difference ultimately, besides just amount of pay? And
there's not.
There isn't. That's what I'm saying.
Except for what I just brought up. An NFL player can't sign his contract and then say a week later, I don't want to play here.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to leave and go to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Correct. That's what this all. So we all want to attribute the issues right now with the structure to the modern day of NIL, but it goes a lot further than that and a lot deeper than that. And going into the development of the transfer portal, which, by the way, came before the inception of NIL. And guys could transfer before, but it was not the free-for-all that it is now. But I agree. Freedom of movement, Mark. Freedom of movement.
Yeah, this is one of these things that doesn't come up in life much for me in terms of how I view society and culture and what's good and what's not so good and what's corrupt. But this would be one instance where I believe what is good for the individual is not, or what could be good for the individual based on their own wisdom in making those kind of choices and decisions. But what is right is to give the individual freedom of choice and freedom of movement, but it's not good for the sport.
And is it good for the individual ultimately? In some cases, I think it is.
If they make good choices.
But I think we can both agree from what we just said earlier, these are not kids anymore. They are adults. And if they're going to be making tens, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, then they should be treated like adults.
The level of goodness for the individual is based on what they do with it. If I hand you $1 million, is that a good thing?
Yes.
Well, for you, it's a good thing.
Yes, you're a good person, Mark.
But if you go become a drug dealer with that $1 million, that's not a good thing. But if you go feed the poor, that's a great thing. So it's just a tool. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here. And you didn't know that we were going to solve the ills of society as well, but we can do that here as well at the Voice of College Football. I believe we've got Tom Kakert of On3's Hawkeye Report stopping by to talk some Iowa football.
There
Tom, how are you doing today?
Guys, good to see you. Corey, it's been a minute. We haven't chatted. I was, it was so funny. I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, I need to get in touch with Corey, and Corey reaches out. So we were mind melding.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. That might be a scary thing for some people, but no, Tom, I appreciate you being here, and you were down there in person for Kirk's presser today. I kind of want to start by just asking you, what was the overall tenor? Was it similar to what we got? What was it, a month or two ago with the Tim Lester opening press conference? Obviously, they got a few practices in before the spring intro presser today.
Yeah, it was, I think, pretty good, pretty positive. I thought he, he loves spring football. Kirk is, spring football is all about development, practice, repetitions. This is fun for him. It's the teaching part is what he loves the most about football. I remember him telling me one time some of his favorite times are those cold March days when they would practice outside and he's just working with guys and trying to get them better. So yeah, it's a fun time of the year for him.
Bowl prep or spring, which is better in Kirk's mind?
I think spring football. He just loves that because he's been away from those guys for a little bit. They've been in the weight room. Now guys might look a little bit different. They've gotten stronger. He might be testing a guy out at a different position or something. So yeah, it's a fun time of year for him.
Okay. So Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say, Tom, unfortunately, I didn't know that there was a news conference today. Corey, fortunately, alerted me about 10 minutes before. So I just got started on the press conference. So early on, Kirk made a comment about the difference between what is going to be expected of the offensive players and what they have to deal with at just a brand new situation versus, hey, we've been running this defense for 25 years, you know what to do kind of thing. Just continue to improve and develop. And I would think that would put a little charge in the offensive players, a little spark to really focus in and try to improve themselves and learn something new.
Here's the big issue for Iowa this spring. The guy who's going to be running the offense is limited. He was very clear today that Cade McNamara isn't fully practicing yet, and they don't expect him to be full speed until June. Now it's good that he'll be ready to go in June, but it doesn't help them in March and April when they're going to be practicing. He's out there, but he can't, do dropbacks, can't move around in the pocket. He can just kind of stand there and throw a football, which is great, but not what you need from a quarterback. So, that's going to be a challenge. But I do think with the recent developments with Kayden Proctor leaving and everything, just little nuggets I've heard from different people is that some of these guys on the offensive line are taking this on and are motivated by it. So they feel like they've got something to prove and that they're good players and that they can make plays. And so we'll see if that works out. But I think there's some motivation for the guys up front. Kirk did mention Logan Jones, starting center, out recovering from surgery. So Tyler Ellsbury's been working at center most of the time. But they've got, they're missing Rusty Feth, but they've got everybody else pretty much back. And like he said, and I wrote at the time when the Proctor stuff went down the other day, you can't miss what you never had. They never even had a practice with the dude on the roster. So it's just, it is what it is. He's on. He's going.
Real quick, Corey, just to follow up with Tom on that point about the offensive line situation, is there a player or two who was the most impacted by Kayden Proctor flipping again and thinking, oh, okay, hey, I've got an opportunity? Who do you think that impacts the most?
Boy, that's a great question. I just positionally, probably Mason Richmond, because he was probably going to move to the right tackle position. So now he's back to left tackle. Jennings Dunker probably impacted a little bit because he's now back to right tackle. He may have been a guard with Kayden Proctor there. And there was some salivating going on of, putting Jennings Dunker maybe on the same side with Kayden Proctor. And, we got an eclipse coming up on the 8th of April. And that might have been an eclipse with two guys that big on one side of the line, but it's not going to happen. So we can't fantasy book that anymore. What I'm real curious about though, is when Logan Jones comes back and he's going to be the center, what happens with Ellsbury? Because I thought Ellsbury played terrific football last month of the season. And is he going to be one of the starting guards? Can Bo Stevens stay healthy? Connor Colby's going to be one of the starting guards, but is it the other one going to be somebody like Tyler Ellsbury? I think there's maybe a chance that could happen.
Nick DeYoung, the one guy that maybe we didn't bring up, but he's probably impacted by the Kayden decision. He came back and has taken up a scholarship for an extra year, much to the chagrin of some Hawkeye fans that he's kind of I don't know why he's turned into the bad boy, but I think that goes back to the 2021 Big Ten title game. But anyways, he's a guy who's probably going to be, I know Kirk has talked about his ability to move inside and out and the flexibility that they have with him. And and then I don't know, as far as depth chart's concerned, Tom, surprises, like I just, when I scurried through the depth chart before this show, I'm like, okay, Trevor Lauk's on the depth chart. Cade Piper's on the depth chart. We knew he made some headway last year. Jarrett Bowie's there. I mean, he played a little as he got healthy as the year went on. And then fullback, maybe a little bit surprised that Van Wetzinga is listed with Hayden Large as his backup. Maybe you have more insight into that. I guess that took me by a little bit of surprise.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think a lot of that is just like listing what was there last year, and Eli Miller is going to be working in there in that group. We did ask Kirk if there was still going to be a fullback because there'd been some rumblings that maybe the fullback was going to, disappear from the Iowa offense, but he said, "Oh no, it's still there. Still going to have it around." So, so I think that's that trio is probably going to work at the fullback position, and you wonder if they've still got to get down to the 85 scholarship thing in August, and I do kind of wonder if maybe a Nick DeYoung or a Kyler Fisher end up kind of not being on scholarship, if that makes sense, and perhaps the collectives pay for their tuition as a walk-on, which they can do. I found that out this spring this winter that is something that's legal. Collectives can pay tuition for student athletes now.
Tom, we better hope that. And I was all for Nick DeYoung coming back, but I think a lot of Iowa fans would resent the idea of the collective paying for his scholarship.
Well, that's it. Well, it's one or the other. He's on scholarship and it's paid for by a scholarship, or it's paid for by the collective. Either way, he's got to get something taken care of, one way or the other, and they got to get under 85. So somebody's going to have to, and it might work itself out naturally through natural attrition. April's going to be interesting, guys. I think. The depth chart at quarterback still has Deacon Hill as the backup, and that's created a lot of if you have acid reflux like I do, that's a little indigestion. For Iowa fans, when you mention Deacon Hill, they start throwing up in their mouth a little bit, I think sometimes.
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, get some Prilosec. But I do wonder if you're coming out of spring with no clarity at the number 2 quarterback position. I think it is fair to say they probably don't want to go into the fall with Deacon as the backup unless he shows a lot of progress this spring, right? I'm not counting on that, but I'm just saying it's possible that he could. Tim Lester hits the magic button with him, and he's much better and looks like a really solid backup quarterback. If not, they're going to have to hit the portal. There's going to be quarterbacks in there this spring in the portal, and they're going to have to go out and find somebody. I would imagine that at some point, and you look at that Ohio State quarterback room, and there's like 5 or 6 4- and 5-star guys. Here's the thing we know about quarterbacks in college football, fellas. They're not going to sit forever. And somebody's going to hit the eject button and say, boy, I can go here and compete for a starting job. And I know I'm not going to get it at Ohio State. So you do that.
Can I throw in a random idea, Tom? And I know this isn't going to happen, but this relates to some conversations Mark and I have had in the past. And I got to thinking about it because I did listen to the first part of Kirk's presser today when he was talking about just the biggest criteria for now athletes, not just in the recruiting process, but in the transfer portal process. It used to be television exposure, and then it's, facilities, and now it seems to be more NIL. And I'm just thinking about Iowa in the spring game. So many of the programs, and you, I'm sure you have better insight into this than I do. So many of the programs have their spring practice televised on BTN.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Iowa's is not. First of all, why is that?
They don't do a traditional spring game. I think that's the big thing.
Okay. So
Neither
I
does
guess,
Michigan State. Michigan State does not, but Florida State doesn't. But they still put their practice out there. That's
Yeah.
something, yeah, as Corey mentioned, Corey and I have
think it's a
talked about it.
marketing. It's a marketing thing too.
Exactly.
And I don't think Kirk really loves having it out there. So
well, here's what I'll say about that, and I understand from a game planning perspective why you would not want some of that out there. However, with the times changing, and see if you're following my line of reasoning here,
Mhm.
Mark, with the opportunity perhaps to showcase a new offense stylistically, with how important a spring portal period could be,
Mhm.
perhaps you rethink that.
Yeah,
Right?
I could see that. What's wild to me? One of my buddies covers Missouri, and they were done with their spring practices and had their final spring practice before I even had a spring practice, which is just, it's bizarre to me how the two different approaches. And their spring thing was, I think it was on one of the ESPN family networks, was the Mizzou practice or final spring game. They didn't have any hitting. There was no contact really at all from Mizzou. So, it's just different approaches.
Yeah.
Different approaches.
And I just am thinking, you brought up Ohio State, potentially quarterbacks jumping in the portal and having their pick of schools. Unless a player who has options to go different places in the Power Five has reason to believe there will be significant change at Iowa, most quarterbacks aren't going to want to come here, especially when Cade is considered to be the starter when healthy. So if they're able to see on their television, hey, this offense looks different with this new guy at the helm, yeah.
You know
But
what they'll probably say about Cade too, or selling to a quarterback? Cade's played 7 games in 2 years.
Yeah. And that's fair. No, there's absolutely attractive things. Now, last time I think you and I sat down with Don Patterson, Tom, I know Don has been an advocate for, and he's not there every day, but he's been outspoken about the idea of, with Cade out or not full speed right now, give Marco Lainez more snaps.
Yeah, I've written it. I've written it a couple times. Yeah.
Do you think that's going to happen?
No, I think they're going to split it.
You think they'll split? You think it will be split?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's better than what we've seen. You go back to the open spring practice. I know that's a small window into spring ball of 2023, Tom, but
yeah,
they were not split with the backups last year in spring. And I know Cade was coming off an injury then as well. But as far as being able to see both of these quarterbacks against the ones, you've got 2 guys on scholarship this period. So you got plenty of snaps to go around for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, you got plenty of snaps for both those guys. So I think they're both going to get a lot of work, and they'll know at the end of spring. They'll know probably before then. They might even know now, to be honest, if one of those guys is going to be a good enough backup, or if they need to hit the portal. My guess is they're going to hit the portal. That's my guess.
Anything else for Tom before he hops off, Mark?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, just as much ire as there is over Deacon Hill being listed second on the depth chart. I do get it. I think we can get it because Marco Lainez hasn't shown anything, and Kirk's going to be that guy that is going to stay in order until something drastically changes.
Yep.
Well, it's just like when we have conversations and on our basketball shows, and Gary Close says it's not as important who starts, it's more important who's playing the most minutes. So
100%.
I don't care what the depth chart looks like right now either. I'm not disappointed in Kirk because Marco's not at the top of the depth chart. But hopefully during these all-important reps over the next couple of weeks, Marco is getting, like Tom said, at least equal time against equal competition.
I'll say this too, and I talked to there are several people who are at the coaches clinic who watched practice this past weekend, and people that I've talked to who are coaches at the high school level who were watching practice, and I have yet to find a person who said Marco Lainez was better than Deacon Hill on Saturday in the practices. Every one of them said that Deacon was still the better option. So, take that for what it's worth.
That's what this period's for, right? We're 3 practices in. You've got.
I know that's not what people want to hear. I get it, well, but I'm just telling you what people say.
But that's what this period's for, and that's Tim's job, right? To get to figure out raw potential and develop that over.
I do think they will benefit from better quarterback coaching, and talking to a few of the players, just kind of randomly in the last couple days. They really like the offense, the new offense. There's more movement in it, and they like that. And seems like the running backs might catch footballs a little bit more often in this offense too. So that might be something to watch. So I think they like what the offense can do. Now it's putting it into practice and putting it into something on the field to make it work there, as opposed to a theoretical thing in a playbook that you really like. You got to see it out there, but I think I think Tim Lester is going to be a really good fit for Iowa. He's a different fit than Brian. You need a guy who's kind of a calming voice at that position and the coaching staff, and we saw it. I mean, one of the last things we saw from Brian was that Big Ten championship game, and seeing him lose his mind on the sidelines. And he did.
I know.
He did. And it's just hard to stay calm. You want your quarterback to be calm and relaxed and comfortable, and that.
And Tom, you were sitting in the row ahead of me in Indy, and let's not forget that happened on a strip sack, right? Yes. Where Deacon was stripped. So it's not like he's, he got hit, made a great play, but he got leveled. No, another turnover.
Exactly. It's not like Deacon Hill threw a 45-yard touchdown pass, but they got called for holding.
Right.
So we had to bring it back. It was either a disastrous play or a really disastrous play is what it was.
Exactly. Well, Tom, thank you for being here. Appreciate you hopping on.
Guys.
We'll get together again here soon.
Yeah, sounds great. We'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thanks, Tom. Good stuff. I mean, I know, I think what Tom said is fair about, what he's heard early reports from practice, but I would think that Tim, raw potential wise, you can't possibly tell me that Marco's ceiling is not exponentially higher than Deacon's. And that starts with the ability to extend plays. We saw that in the bowl game, and I'm not denying that there's probably a lot of work to be done with his arm, but that's why Tim Lester's here. We'll see. I'm anxious to see when we get that open practice here in a few weeks. I'm going to try to track as many snaps as possible, and hopefully it's not cold. I hate when it's a spring practice and it's cold out, man. But I'm going to try to track as many snaps as possible and just see, because it just would be such an opportunity lost with Cade on the sidelines, in actual pads, with him on the sidelines, why you wouldn't give both those guys equal opportunity. And Mark, I know we're already up against the gun. Do we want to look at special teams? We kind of talked about previewing that unit. If there's something else that you want to talk about first, we certainly can.
No, we definitely can. I'm right there with Tom, of course. We both are. We had that conversation a number of times, but specifically there's a thumbnail with Ohio State's Devin Brown and our conversation about possibly getting a transfer quarterback. Yeah, they've got 5 guys in the mix over there, so they're not all sticking around. All right, on special teams, of course, it's not a stretch to say that Torrey Taylor, I saw one article today as I was kind of reviewing the specialists that called him one of the best punters in program history. He's one of the best punters in the history of college football. He moves on. And of course, Marshall Meter is the backup kicker. And Drew Stevens missed some kicks last year. He's got to be a little bit tighter in 24.
I think he'll figure it out. I've been told that, and I haven't talked to anybody about this recently, but I think probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was told pretty good authority that Iowa was likely going to go to the portal at kicker in the spring. Now they're going to be bringing whoever they bring in as a walk-on. So like right now, Trip Woody, the freshman out of North Carolina, is listed. I don't think they want to go into fall camp with Trip Woody. Now maybe Trip looks really good during the spring. That'd be great. But I don't think, Marshall Meter came in and hit a big kick against Nebraska. If they could get another Marshall Meter, maybe even a little bit better than Marshall Meter, that may be hard to sell because you have a 2-year starter in Drew Stevens ahead of him. And I think Drew, I'm not that concerned with Drew. I know he struggled a little bit late in the year. He's dealing with an injury. The line wasn't very good. Not making excuses for him, but just reality. So a kicker, I would guess that they'll grab somebody, bring somebody in as a walk-on, and then Reese Dakin, the new kicker from Melbourne. He's had all kinds of hype out of high school from this Pro Kick Australia camp. It's the same organization where Tory Taylor came from. And you look at the kid on tape. We remember when he first committed. You and I looked at some clips from him, and you're just really impressed by the sheer force, the power coming off this kid's leg. But as Kirk brought out today, boy, they're replacing, and as you brought out, they're replacing a great one. So I have a hard time expecting Dakin to be Tory Taylor, but for now, LeVar Woods is still part of this staff. Remember, he interviewed for the Bucs job not that long ago, didn't get it. And I've been told on pretty good authority he's going to be here, barring something completely unforeseen. He's going to be the special teams guy moving forward, but I don't know that he's going to be here past this season. So focusing on now, I like what they've got. Luke Elkin comes back as long snapper. We didn't get any indication of who's going to be returning kicks because I'm sure they don't know that yet. Caleb Brown's probably in the mix. Caleb Johnson's returned kickoffs in the past. They lose Cooper DeJean, who's a phenomenal punt returner. So, who fills in there? Maybe it's one of the young wideouts. I don't see Jazz Patterson listed. That's one thing I didn't ask Tom about. A little bit curious as to that. Not to say we need to read into that. I know we're kind of segueing into a different position, but Jazz, there were rumors at one point that he may leave. Not saying he will, but you only play so many guys. And I the other thing I'm intrigued by, and this goes to special teams as well. Tom brought up Eli Miller, who's going to be backing up Van Wetzing at fullback, with Hayden Large now officially being listed as a tight end, and that's his natural position. He's a 6'4", 6'5" guy. I do wonder, maybe we'll see some Hayden Large on special teams in some form, whatever that looks like, because he is a big physical guy who played a lot last year. So I have more confidence, I think, than some do in Drew Stevens just kind of bouncing back. I know his Drew Stevens mindset. He is what you want as a kicker as it relates to mentality. He's just going to flush it and keep moving forward, very low key. I know his dad on social media has vented some frustration in the past. Drew's been seen spinning a football on his finger as he's about to kick, almost nonchalant about it. But that's also part of that mentality of just staying relaxed. And, this moment's no bigger than any other. So I like him from that perspective. He's obviously got the leg to play at this level, and I think beyond. But depth at both positions is going to be questionable. Ty Nissen from Carroll is the backup punter. Go ahead, Mark.
Unless I'm missing something, what could possibly be the criticism of Drew Stevens spinning a football on social media?
I don't think his dad has been critical of that specifically, but his dad, I think, has been deservedly so a little bit critical of just maybe not being as down to business as you need to be prior to a kick. Or
is this video of him doing it on the sideline before he goes out?
There's video of Drew Stevens on the sideline spinning the football on his finger, dancing on the sidelines. Like, I get it. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but he did struggle down the stretch. So, maybe lock in a little bit different. But man, we've always been told, Mark, that you got to be a different kind of person to be a kicker. Kind of like I think you got to be a different kind of person to be a fullback. Like you kind of have to be a maniac. And there are some maniacs that have been through Iowa at that kicking position or that fullback position. And then there's these kickers that look like they should be working in the library somewhere because, again, it takes a special type of cat. So, yeah, I mean, I always wonder who's going to be returning kicks and punts. That's always usually my biggest question mark because you have pretty much. I have great confidence in LeVar's ability to evaluate kicking because they've been so good in both respects for so long. But I do wonder now, who's going to be returning kicks and punts and how do you replace Cooper DeJean, his playmaking ability? Oh, by the way, it was not a fair catch. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say this affords me the opportunity to say, are they going to be working on fair catch signals during the spring? And anyone who missed my analysis, no, I do believe that was a horrible call. So I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't jump.
I love these fights that still are happening on social media that I see every once in a while. Pictures of Cooper DeJean doing this and people saying, it was the right call. Quit complaining.
Yeah, there was something you pointed out to me. It was only like a month ago. And I'm like, seriously? They're still, that wasn't correct. That wasn't.
Well, I think it's fair to say that that mistake probably won't happen again. Not that it would probably happen anyways, because it was so unprecedented, but I'm guessing that Iowa especially, you won't see that happen again.
PJ Fleck had to get one win against Iowa before he moves on or gets fired or something.
Yeah, where's he at? Isn't he still at Minnesota?
Oh, he's still in Minnesota. I'm just saying I'm just throwing
he's
out
in the
the possibility that this would be his only win against Iowa.
Hey, are you going to the Big Ten? Are you going to Big Ten Media Days this year?
I'm going to have a lot further to travel, but I will look into it.
Where is it at? Is it Minneapolis?
No, Indianapolis.
Oh, it's Indy. Oh, are you sure it's Indy?
I'm almost positive. That's where it's been forever.
Yeah, I didn't. I just know that. Well, I just knew that the men's and women's basketball tournaments were moved to Minneapolis. Or rotating, and I figured at some point we're going to get Big Ten Media Days out in California, so that's why I didn't know.
No, I'm almost I'm almost positive it's still Indianapolis this year.
PJ is he's always in the running for these different jobs, and yet he always seems to stay. Isn't that interesting? Maybe it's because he's not actually good enough to leave. Is that possible?
No, it's not. It's possible, but that's not the case. He is good enough to leave.
He's good enough to get one of these high-profile jobs.
I don't know that UCLA is much more high-profile than Minnesota. It's a more coveted location, but
yeah, well,
they haven't been a better football team.
It's more of the hey, look at me, I'm in the spotlight type of job.
Yeah, it fits him, you would think.
Yeah. You mind me addressing Taylor, his comment in the chat, Mark?
Go to it.
He wants to know what I think about Tony Perkins leaving. I know this is basketball related. Not shocked by it. I did talk to Frank Henderson, Tony's uncle, this afternoon, and the decision by Tony was made today. They had player meetings today, and that's the decision. So, yeah, this is the era. Is there always a chance he comes back? Well, probably, but I would guess he doesn't. Most guys that enter the portal end up leaving, and I think he will have opportunities to make some money going elsewhere. So you can hate it or not, but that's the reality of college athletics now. I'm a big Tony Perkins fan myself, but he's seen guys like Joe Toussaint and CJ Frederick really is flamed out, but these other guys that have left and had opportunities to showcase their talents. I think Toussaint's the best example, given what he's done at a couple of different Big 12 programs.
Big Ten Media Days are confirmed for Indianapolis this year.
Okay. Good to know.
So I will probably just survey flights. And if that works out, then I may go.
Yeah. I don't really want to drive what is the drive over there? Is it like 7 hours? I don't really want to drive 7 hours. I think it's more than 7 hours. I just did that drive for the Big Ten title game. Let me look to see what it is from Ames. I think it's at least 7 hours, isn't it? It is. Sure, everybody cares. 7.5 hours. I don't really want to do a 7.5 hour drive when I really don't care what these other coaches have to say. Like I would totally do it if it was in Minneapolis, but I might hesitate on Indy.
I enjoyed it, but I want to hear from everyone. So
yeah, exactly. You come at it from a very different place.
I'd like to remind everyone that we've got the state of the Voice of College Football live stream. That's Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're showing up to talk college football, this is not your thing. This is not your night. We talk college football 364 and a half days a year. But for this particular live stream, it's all about our network and the Voice of College Football. So everything related to the Voice of College Football. I don't know if this stream's going to last for 45 minutes or 8 hours, but I'm going to say everything I have to say and take as many questions and comments about the channel and the network as you would like to send me.
Over under 2.5 hour show.
Oh,
for that. Over? You think it'll be over 2.5?
Over. Yes.
All right. Will it be one of those things where no matter what video people click on YouTube, it'll be showing the state of college football?
Oh,
address?
that we simulcast it all the way across everywhere?
No. Well, you should do that. But no, I'm saying like even when people click on different, like people can click on my channel or people click on like CBS Sports, it's just gonna, that's what happens. In
the internet does not afford me that kind of preference.
Oh, okay.
I'm not some other outlets that you see that regardless of what you want to see, you get thrown particular.
You're going to get the state of college football.
All right, Corey. Well, when is the next women's game?
Saturday. So we may have a live show prior to that. I guess people can stay tuned to see if we do like a pregame Hawkeye hangout or at least a podcast at some point prior to Saturday. And then we'll probably do a later post-game Saturday because I know a lot of people want to watch the other Sweet 16 games. I know UConn's playing, and it's an action-packed day. And, of course, there's Elite 8 games for the men on Saturday. So we'll have probably a night post-game show on Saturday and hopefully be talking about an Iowa team advancing to the Elite 8. But it's hard to get there. They got a shot at doing it, though, against a tough Colorado team.
I would love to see Iowa play Colorado in football. That would be interesting.
That'd be a couple of coaches that contrast each other.
Yeah, that would be fun. Okay. All right, folks. We'll make it on back here next Tuesday at 4:30 Central. In the meantime, lock in on Corey's work at the Hawkeye of the Storm, and we'll make it on back again next Tuesday.